but they're getting beauty.
Legislature legalized unverifiable voting in 2000.
Like you said to Trump, but they're getting beauty.
They said, go out there and rob these houses and bring back the bounty, and then that'll pay your way.
Because Republicans who get endorsement from Georgia carry that they mean anything.
You can't sit on the sidelines any longer. You must get involved in the game. This is your sign. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday night Small Town Underground. Appreciate y'all being here with me. I'm going to have a special video coming out Friday with Joe McCoy. If you haven't heard of Joe McCoy, he is the wonderful patriot from up north that is having a huge battle right now for having a huge Trump sign on a tractor trailer on his own property. We're going to bring you the story as well as his Give, Send, Go. We're going to have a special video coming out Friday. So I appreciate it. I hope everybody is doing well. We got past district convention. We were successful with using paper ballots for the convention as our show to the state that we can do this. And feel free to share this out I got a special guest with me tonight. And welcome to the show. We're going to welcome Laurie McClain. And how are you doing this evening?
I'm good, Roy. Thank you for letting me come on.
Yes, it's my pleasure. I've recently met you. I'm going to tell my story about I was able to go to the MAGA Georgia debate in Gainesville, Georgia, a couple weeks ago, just by the skin of my teeth. I was not even going to go. I decided to show up and be there because I was interested in hearing all the candidates that were going to be there that night. And so I had always heard your name, Laurie, and who you were, but never knew you. And I gave you my full attention as well as anybody on the stage. And, you really kind of blew me away with what you were saying. And so I decided that I'd like to know more. And I think that the people need to know more because You're running for re-election for state GOP treasurer, and you just recently, I guess you became the state treasurer for the 9th district in the state, correct?
I am the District 9 treasurer as of last Saturday.
Gotcha. So obviously, you've got quite a bit of experience in this stuff, and it's things that I'm interested in. We want to talk about. There's no secret that a lot of people, say they don't trust where the money goes to the GOP and all this stuff, and I get all that. So I think it's going to be a good educational experience to look into some of this and find out more about it. So thank you for being on the show tonight. And so I'd like you to introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us who you are, your background, and how you kind of got into this. Okay?
Okay. Well, again, my name is Laurie McClain. I live in Gwinnett County. I've been here 51 years. I was born in Georgia, in Decatur, and so I'm a Southern girl. Went to Georgia State University, got my BBA in accounting, and went to work for a large local accounting firm doing all small business accounting, nuts and bolts from the bottom, the bookkeeping to the financials and the tax work and all that stuff. After about 10 years, went out on my own, started my own firm, and I have been on my own ever since. I got involved in Gwinnett County community, let's put it that way, back in 2003 when I joined the Chamber of Commerce. Got to know folks, got to know how things worked, and got really interested in the inner workings of the government of the county. And so got involved in several committees, had some really awesome opportunities. I was on a committee that was tasked with finding ways to cut costs in Gwinnett County during the 2008 downfall, with the real estate
Yes.
debacle. And so I really got connected to the finances of the county. Then I was very fortunate that our chairman of the Board of Commissioners asked me to be on the she has a citizens budget review committee.
Okay.
And so I served on that. I actually served on that for 2 years. The year before, I served for another chairman who unfortunately resigned because he wasn't the most upstanding human in the world. But anyway, so I've always had, I just have a numbers background. I mean, I'm a junkie for numbers.
Gotcha.
And ran for office for District 1 County Commissioner in 2020.
Oh.
And unfortunately, at that point, Gwinnett had started to turn blue. The Democrats threw a lot of money. I heard $200,000 into the Gwinnett County Commission races. And in exchange, as a Republican, I got a check from the Gwinnett GOP for $200.
Mm-hmm.
And after I lost the election, I was like, with a disparity like that in the finances, there is clearly something wrong with the Gwinnett GOP. So let me go see if there's something I can do to help them.
Okay.
And I ran as treasurer and was fortunate to be elected. And I became treasurer. This was a point in time when, quite frankly, they were almost broke because there had been some malfeasance, some misappropriation, that sort of thing. Won't go into the details there. And so there was a really, really strong distrust of the executive committee, even though we were all brand new. Okay. And I think as a result of bringing them regular financial statements, explaining every line item on them, telling them how much money we had, where the money was coming from, where it was going, and and explaining ways that we were trying to save money and get, things donated in kind and that sort of thing. I think we finally won them back over. And as a result, the the members of the GOP and the people in the community began to realize that the Gwinnett GOP was a good investment. And so we started getting funds coming in. And over the 4 years that I was on the executive committee for the Gwinnett GOP, we spent, I say 50,000. My chairman will tell you it was more than 50,000, but I'm being conservative. Spent $50,000 on local candidates, trying to help them get elected. Yeah, coming from being dead broke when we walked in the door. So
that's huge.
You know, so all I can take from that is that transparency matters, and that's kind of who I am. You know, I don't offer information because I have a fiduciary responsibility. I don't share everything I know. You know, and my clients over the last almost 40 years know this. And so, but I know that I can share with people where the money's coming from, where it's going, and at least they understand and they feel better. Okay, at least somebody knows where the money is and where it's going.
Right.
And I think it adds to their comfort level. So after 2 years as the Gwinnett treasurer, I was encouraged to run for treasurer of the Georgia GOP, and was actually rather surprised to have gotten elected. But I was grateful and very honored. And you know, and I have I have met so many great and wonderful people throughout the state as a result of this. And so I have, over the last 2 years, I have had so many phone calls. This county chairman, that county treasurer, even district chairs. Hey, how do we handle this? What, are we allowed to do this? You know, how do I report this? One of the biggest questions I get all the time is, do I have to file a 990? And it's like, I wish I had a signal chat with just the treasurer so I wouldn't have to answer the question 100 times. But I don't, so it's okay. If they text me or call me or email me, I answer them.
Gotcha.
And I think it's important to have that resource available to our county party chairs and treasurers and everybody else. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to be a resource. And I have found that this has been a really good way for me to be able to do that.
Right.
And so I decided that maybe it would be a good idea for me to run for re-election so that I would still be in a position to help them. And so here we are. You're caught up now.
I mean, that sounds perfectly reasonable. Number one, you know, that's amazing that you were able to turn that Gwinnett, you know, county GOP around. You know, I have a lot of friends in Gwinnett. We had an interview with Baron Reinhold. I know it's harder and harder in these kind of metro counties to get Republicans elected, right? We just had an upset in Cobb County last night. There was 2 commission spots that we were not able to get. And we all know that in the Democrat Party, I mean, we're seeing all this USAID funding that was literally taxpayer slush funds. Stacey Abrams. So obviously we've been outmoneyed for quite some time. But to hear that we're trying to build that up and build up the trust with the people and get more money out for these candidates. I mean, obviously, that's a very important job to try to bring all that together. Especially now that it's sort of, I don't know if you agree with me, when I look at it, it's sort of like this establishment grassroots type fight that we're dealing with people that don't have money, don't have power, very little influence, are trying to create roads to get, good candidates elected that are going to hold that line against all of this kind of draconian lawfare that we have in this state. So it's amazing.
Well, Roy, and I mean, campaigns need money.
Absolutely.
I mean, we'd love to be able to do it, without raising a bunch of money. And so all I want to be able to tell people is, hey, if you give to this organization, we're going to use that money to help get Republicans elected.
Right.
That's what we're doing. And, I think if you're able to do that, more folks will be willing to even the $20, when they can.
Sure.
20 bucks, it adds up. It adds up.
Right. So this brings me to my next point. And I've seen, so at the Gainesville debate, there was people being asked on camera about, do they trust the GOP? Do they trust giving their money? I talked to a lot of people, and this is no reflection on you or the current leadership or anybody else. They just simply say they don't trust giving money. I don't trust giving money to hardly anybody. And when I give money personally to my GOP. I know that that's there. We have a treasurer who, is open with the books and all these things, and we know where our money's at. So why do you think that people don't trust the GOP, or do you have an opinion about that?
Well, I'm not really sure where it comes from, because I don't know what has caused distrust.
Okay.
But I do know that telling people to go look at the FEC reports doesn't help matters.
Okay.
Because that's a fancy check register. Okay. It doesn't tell you anything. I don't know, I think there are a lot of people that the closer it is to home, the more they trust it.
Right.
So I get that, and I'm okay with that. But I think it's possible to rebuild trust in those folks that maybe have, for whatever reason, decided that they just don't have it. I think it can be rebuilt.
Okay. Well, that's another interesting point you bring up. So when you look at things online, and so I kind of want you to go through your job a little bit, because that's been a big point that's been brought up, is about how these reports match the FEC reports. But what I'm getting is we just don't know what's really going on, right? Is that a fair assessment?
Well, yeah. Let me kind of expand a little bit on what I just said.
Okay.
We are required by the FEC and by the Georgia Campaign Finance Commission to report every dollar that comes in and every dollar that goes out. Okay, and that is done. That is done on a regular basis. The Georgia reports, the filing deadlines are a little squirrely depending on if it's an election year or not. The FEC reports are every month.
Okay.
Okay. And they absolutely, as best, and I'm going to say this with a caveat, okay? And I'm not suggesting anything. I'm suggesting nothing. I'm simply telling you a fact.
Okay.
And that is, if I look at an FEC report that is through January 31st, and I go look in the QuickBooks, that we have QuickBooks Online, I have access to it. Karen has access to it. Karen Henschel, our accounting director. She's amazing. She does a fabulous job. She works her tail off. I can tell you all the things she does if I knew half of them.
Right.
So I know that the balance showing on the FEC report, as far as how much money we have in the bank, agrees to what's in QuickBooks.
Okay.
I can tell you that without a doubt every single month, because I can always check that. Okay. And I check it when I do the Georgia report as well. We don't do that one as often.
Okay.
So signing those reports is a big part of my job. And, I have to count on Karen to fill them out correctly. Okay.
Okay.
And I would imagine she probably does it pretty darn close to perfect. Okay. My challenge is, I'm an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a forensic accountant. Okay. I want to see the source documents, because that is my nature.
Sure.
Do you just call your tax accountant and say, take a deduction for $20,000 for charitables? And he says, sure, no problem. No, he says, send me the receipts, right?
Right.
Okay. Same thing. So, I fill out the report. We have those FEC reports. The balance is agreed. Now, we are given like a little blurb about that long to put in what the check was written for.
Okay.
Okay. May or may not be long enough, right? A lot of times it says legal expense. Unfortunately, we have a lot of that. Doesn't tell you what kind of legal expense, does it?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have all these expenses that have categories attached to them.
Okay.
Fair enough. Okay. The challenge is the contributions that come in, and 99.9% of every deposit that's made into either our federal account or our state account, we have two. I could talk about that if you want to. Every pretty much 99.9% of the money that goes in there is shown as a contribution on our FEC reports. Every once in a while, we get a reimbursement and we show it as a negative expense, but that's an unusual situation.
Okay.
So they're shown as contributions. Well, what is shown is the name, address, and occupation of the person making the contribution. You have no idea what it's for. You have no idea where it came from. Is it for an event? Was it a sponsorship? Was it a ticket to the convention? You have no idea.
Right.
And that makes it very difficult to understand what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is what frustrates people. They are sent to in some cases, those Georgia reports especially, I think one of them I looked at recently was 400 pages long.
Wow.
That's insane. Now, I'm a nerd. I read it. Most people are not going to do that. Okay. And I get that. I wouldn't expect them to. But again, there's no taking this sponsorship check and matching it with this expense.
Okay.
That's what an accountant does.
Sure.
Okay. That's our job. That's an accountant's job. Now, Karen puts it in the QuickBooks and I can usually figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I have questions for her. I can usually figure it out. So when I do a financial statement, I am able to say, okay, let's just use the Laura Trump event that they just recently had.
All right.
I can say this much money came in from the Laura Trump event. We had sponsorships, we had tickets, we had, all this money came in. Here are the expenses for that particular event. And I can say we made money or we lost money. And I think that level of reporting is what makes people feel better.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Well, sure.
Okay. So, that's all I'm trying to do.
Right.
Is provide that information. And
So
it's not always easy, but I'm willing to work on it.
sure. So let me give you my definition of a treasurer. A treasurer is somebody, like, for example, in any business, anything that comes in, anything that you're spending, you have to keep up with receipts. You have to know what is going out, coming in, just like you said. In my local GOP, our treasurer, she creates a treasurer's reports that tells us how much we have in the bank, if there's anything been spent. And so everybody there knows it's a check and balance. So does it work that way at our state level?
So it's a little different.
Okay.
We get, number one, because we have a paid accounting director. Okay.
Okay.
You're not going to have that at the county level. Matter of fact, when I became treasurer this weekend at the 9th district, I walked home with a big red cash box.
Okay.
I had my little box and I came home. You don't have that at the Georgia level. We get a lot of our payments are through WinRed and credit card payments and that sort of thing. So they're actually automatically deposited. I can't say that I know how many checks we get, but I would imagine we get a few checks. They go to the office. I assume it's Karen that endorses them and deposits them in the bank. And so it's a little bit different. Now, even though, well, I'm not going to comment on the rules say the treasurer has custody of the funds.
Okay.
But in reality, Karen has custody of the funds.
Okay.
Okay, that's just the reality of the way it's been working.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have so much of it, and then the compliance filings are so complicated that it's good to have somebody that knows what they're doing,
Sure.
doing that.
I got you.
So it's different at the state level because of the volume of the number of contributions and expenses that we write. So I see myself more as an overseer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't just, I know it may sound like it, I don't just rubber stamp the FEC reports. I do, in fact, read them, every single line. And I look for outliers. I look for things that, don't make sense, or I have a question about whatever. And so it's a little bit different. And then I have kind of created a job for myself in helping do training for the county treasurers and district, treasurers. And so I make myself available, and I work with actual candidates in 2024
Okay.
that we're running, helping them with their own compliance filings.
So if you have questions, do you get them answered? I mean, are you able to take a look at these things and the questions that you have? Sometimes? Okay.
Yeah. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. The relationship has gotten very rocky the last few months, and I don't know why.
Right.
I used to be able to email Karen and ask her something, and I got an answer back right away.
Right.
And lately that has not been happening, and I don't know what's causing it.
Really?
Yeah, I really don't.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, so, I don't even know how to respond to that. So, I mean, that's disheartening. I don't understand. So, I mean,
yeah, it is, because you want your treasurer and your accounting director to have a really tight relationship. I mean, we should be the two working the closest together of anybody, right?
right.
And somewhere down the road, not really sure, it's gotten to where I have a difficulty getting answers to questions.
So, have you been able to go and freely look at things the way you've wanted to, or have you had trouble doing that? I guess.
Well, so I don't want to make it sound like I have gone down there and beat on the door.
Sure.
A lot of times, okay? The reality is, for several months, right after I got elected, I was going down there once a month and signing checks. I would go, I can't remember if it was the 15th or the end of the month. I would go and sign checks. Must have been the end of the month. And literally the only thing there for me to sign would be the rent check and the copier lease payment and maybe a few other little things. Because most of our payments were getting made via wire transfer before I got there. And it appeared to me that there was really no point in me continuing to do. I mean, I lose an entire day of work.
I see.
When I do that.
Right. This is a volunteer job.
The town is 45 minutes from where I live.
Gotcha.
And so I finally just said, this is, nobody's gaining anything by me going down there and signing checks.
Mm-hmm.
I vaguely remember when I first got elected asking to see the bank statement, and Karen showed it to me. But I wasn't able to get a copy of it.
Okay. Now, one thing you mentioned in Gainesville, which is something I just wanted to pick your brain about, was you talked about you don't have any idea how the spending goes, right? There's certain cards out there, and you just don't have access to any of that stuff. And so I think that ties into a little bit with my concern about how the money's being spent. Where's the check and balance in all of this? Or is there? I mean...
Is there?
I'm not. No. I don't see one. I'm trying to get the answer. Like, it should be pretty transparent of how the money's being spent. Obviously, in most cases, it usually is. In any business, it is. So, I just wonder. So, if you're the treasurer of the GOP, like, and you don't have access to that, or no,
well,
how?
I'm not suggesting anything is being done that's improper.
And I don't either.
Not even by a stretch.
Right.
I do know there is a credit card. I do know that Josh has a credit card. I don't know. I believe somebody else has it. I don't honestly remember who it is.
Right.
I think it might have been Travis Bowden when he was the executive director, and I'm not really sure what happened after he left.
Okay.
And when we pay for the credit card, you'll see a check on our state report that says Synovus, and
Right.
that's our credit card. And then underneath that will be memo entries, because you don't want to report it twice. They're memo entries that explain the details of what's in there, and that's fine. But it doesn't say, which meeting they were going to, or who went, or who stayed in the hotel, who went to the luncheon, what was, you don't have that kind of detail.
Right.
You wouldn't want that in a public disclosure like that.
Sure.
But I think for transparency purposes, it would be nice if somebody knew.
Right.
And you would think I would be the person who would know that, and unfortunately I'm not.
I got you. So you're running for election. Can you kind of share, like, what do you think? How do you think that this should run? Like, if you were able to be the person who determined how, like, what would you do to put in checks and balances, I guess, or what do you think could be done differently to ensure that people are satisfied with the way the funds go in and out of the GOP? I'm not asking for, I guess we obviously understand it's not everything needs to be public, just like you said. I completely agree. But what do you think that we can do to regain that trust with the people, I guess?
Well, so one of the underlying tenets, if you will, that I've been working under is we don't want financial statements going just anywhere.
Right.
Which, I've learned there are no secrets in this party. Okay. Let's just get real. Anything I say to you tonight will be all over somewhere tomorrow.
True.
We all know this. It's politics. That's how it happens. However, I think there's a way for us to do a monthly, or at a minimum a quarterly financial statement, where I can go in, look at the documents, and say, oh, sure, that was for this mailer. Well, that made good sense. And just be able to report that and have an executive committee meeting or a state committee meeting, at a minimum, and say, this is where the money went. Let's do this on a quarterly basis. And I think it would alleviate a lot of people's concerns and their stress if they just knew that somebody knew.
Well, yeah, I think that's an important caveat. A lot of people down here are talking about how, I mean, obviously we know this is volunteer jobs, right? But you are elected by the delegates of the state, but it seems like that you don't have a lot of meetings, or, I think from what I understand, the last meeting, official meeting, was when I guess the second vice chair, Brian K. Pritchard, they cut him from the position, and then basically that's it. Or
we had a state committee meeting in May of 2024. That was the meeting at the Friends of Eagles building,
okay,
where Pritchard was removed. Then we had another state committee meeting like a week later, or whenever it was, 2 weeks later, at the actual convention.
Okay.
In, where were we? Columbus?
Columbus.
Yeah. And we haven't had another state committee meeting since. We had an executive committee meeting in August of 2024, where we elected Mike Crane to take Brian Pritchard's place as first vice chair.
Okay.
And no disrespect to Mike Crane, but that was August of 2024. He wasn't at that meeting, and I've still yet not met the man.
Really?
Never met him.
See,
and so, which I think is weird. So,
yeah.
When we go to Dalton in June and have our state committee meeting, it will have been over 12 months since we've had a state committee meeting. And I think that is causing as much frustration for folks as anything else.
I think so too. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, when you look at these kind of optics and perception of this, it seems like there's a very big disconnect here going on. Like, I understand these are volunteer positions. Believe me, I've volunteered so much time to my county GOP in the last year, more than my family wants me to. But you would think that you guys would be a little more tight knit. Everybody be working together, having at least these meetings and informing the people. And I don't feel like that I've been informed about anything. Much so.
And you know what? We haven't been informed of anything.
I kind of find that hard to believe.
The state committee hasn't been informed. The executive committee hasn't been informed. And I get it. We were busy. There was an election.
We did. We had a huge election. Understood.
Totally. But, you can pull together a Zoom meeting of 28 people just to say,
right.
Here's what I'm doing today.
Not even a Zoom meeting, right?
No, nothing.
Gosh, obviously this doesn't help my case anymore, but finding trust. I guess I'm trying to understand this, wow. You would seem like that would be more of a priority, and especially making sure that people trust the organization.
That's what I would do different. I mean, I would, at a minimum, I would have, some sort. Our rules call for quarterly executive committee meetings.
Okay.
And that's not happening.
Right. Okay.
I don't understand why we have a set of rules and we don't follow any of. I mean, there's so many of them that we ignore, and then we get so nitpicky about some that don't even matter.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I think that's
a problem too, but that's a whole different conversation.
Sure, and I would like to be the first to say that we've talked twice, I believe, since we're doing this. I have never got the feeling that you are implying, or even to me, that there's something nefarious going on. There's just simply a total lack of transparency or of any kind. Yeah. And frankly, I don't understand how it operates like this. That would mean that nobody's really doing anything but just a couple of people. And how do you trust organizations that run like this, right? I don't know.
Great question.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you an opportunity because I know that you had a few things possibly that you wanted to add to this, but then we'll go to comments. So is there anything else that you would like to touch on before we delve into the comments?
Well, I just want folks to know I am loyal to the Republican Party. I'm not trying to burn down the apple cart, okay? I have a skill set that not everybody else has. And I would submit to you that it's foolish not to take advantage of that skill set that I'm offering to the Georgia Republicans for free.
Right.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you take advantage of that? I'm offering it to you for free. I guess all I would say is I'm just trying to make it a little bit better.
Right.
And this is my way of doing it. I'm not a cheerleader. I'm not a rah-rah person. I'm not going to, get a bunch of people all whipped into a frenzy to go vote and stuff like that. I'm the biggest nerd in the room, and let me do my job.
Right.
And if you'll let me do that part, everybody else won't have to worry about it. And then they can go on and spend their energy on something that really does matter.
Right.
Well,
sure. And I want to say something just as a person here on the ground. As we learn, like, party politics and getting involved in activism, if we're going to practice accountability, transparency, or preach it, we need to practice it. And my whole goal is try to understand how this works. And when I see people that talk about they don't trust the system, right? you're either going to get the input from somebody that, well, we need to figure out why and how to make it better, or they'll just simply ignore it and not do anything about it. And I don't know in this climate anymore how anybody can ignore that, right? The pleas of the people saying we just want everything to be right, and if it is right, there should be no. I mean, I would think there would be no problem in explaining it, showing it it's right. That's all I care about, really.
Well, I think I could add to that and say, what's it going to hurt
Right.
to let the treasurer see things? What is it going to hurt? Okay, I won't be around forever.
Right.
Okay, you can go back to doing it the way you've always done it then.
Right.
But in the meantime, maybe I can be helpful and maybe my skill set would be useful.
Sure.
Why don't we give it a shot, right? What's it going to hurt?
Sure. I totally agree with you. And I appreciate you being open and transparent with me. We don't really know each other, and I was moved by the words you were saying. I just wanted to know more. And so what we're going to do is we're going through comments, and we do have a good bit of people on tonight. So I may just look for the questions.
Okay.
So Lisa Brown Pierce, good to see you. I hope your campaign is doing well. Hardy Strong Bear Taylor is here with you. Hello. Okay, so this is from Denise Sorkness. She said, please ask Laurie. She supports the Doge investigating millions of federal state funds misappropriated, given the fact that Georgia GOP rejected the higher education resolution approved by many state GOPs in 23 and 2025 to U.S. Attorney General Bondi, the Board of Regents. Are you familiar with that?
So I know exactly what Denise is talking about, but I haven't done any research. I haven't actually even read the resolution.
Okay.
I do know what Denise's, what her passion is.
Right.
And I didn't mention this before, but I'm also a college instructor.
Right.
So I get it. I get, higher education is definitely a problem.
Right.
And I can tell you from my experience that I'd love to Doge the system, but I can't really speak to it much more than that without having investigated it a little bit more.
I got you. Yeah, I plan. I'm learning myself about Denise and the things that she's doing. And I've actually read I've read the flyers and everything. So definitely a good question, Denise. And I think a lot of us need to delve into the information that you have. And I didn't, even know till recently that it was an actual resolution back in 2023. So I appreciate the question. We will continue to dive into that. So good to see you, Smatterchew, Lisa. Let's see. Has anybody got any questions? Just now's the time to ask them, guys. Christina Benjamin, everybody's saying great to hear from you. Charles Stoker, Noreen Cantor. Noreen, we need to get Noreen on the show.
Baby.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. Jan Benefield says more qualified than Brandon Beach. I like that. Good to have Jan. And let's see here. Okay. So Charles asked, what is your opinion? I'm sure we need to cover this. You're a candidate. What is your opinion of the NDA? So so before we go any further with that, let me explain my experience, because I got a lot of stuff sent to me about the NDA.
Okay.
I realize, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it used to be about a one-page NDA, and last year it was the single-page NDA. They tried to get people to sign a disparagement agreement. I think that fell flat. Moving along to this year, they created a 9-page NDA with a disparagement connected in with the fines and all these things, and they immediately sent out an email saying all candidates had to sign before it was released. And then I found out yesterday that there was another email, I'm being fair, there was another email released saying it had been 24 hours and that they would start sending it out, I guess, for whoever signed it. So to me, it seemed like a kind of rescind from that. We're not giving this NDA out, but the perception had already been lost at that point.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything nefarious there.
Right.
When I first saw the email saying everybody has to sign it before anybody gets the list, I thought, well, that's not fair. What if somebody's on vacation for a week?
Right.
And then when I read the NDA, I said, well, it's not happening anyway.
Right.
So it made more sense actually for her to let the folks that were willing to sign it go ahead and get the delegate list, and good
Right.
for them for being willing to do that.
Yeah.
I read it. I had specific questions that I asked our general counsel. He responded with his answers. And as a result of his answers, I decided that I can't risk signing the NDA. And so I chose not to. So I'm trying to get everywhere I can all over the state.
Right.
Because unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to contact delegates directly through email or phone. So just trying to share the message as far and wide as I can.
You know, I mean, I can't ignore this. Here's the thing: it's the perception is the key. When you put an email out like that clearly states you're not going to allow people to get it until all candidates sign. I mean, I want people to understand that you've kind of lost the battle when people first read that and they're like, "What?" I mean, I don't think the intentions were that, but obviously the perception is that, right? And
I can't speak for Karen.
Sure.
Okay. But I think it was hey, we want everybody to get the list at one time so that there's no favoritism,
Right.
No argument like that. And that's cool. I mean, that didn't bother me.
Yeah, my first impression.
But, I mean, the worst part is the NDA is egregious and inappropriate for the circumstance.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Plus, my opinion of the NDA, and I read the entire NDA, of course, the original and the 9 pages. I mean, if somebody were to get the delegate list, and then they were the only ones that signed, but yet, you could clearly see that other candidates were using it, then obviously that person would have violated the NDA agreement. So I too will go on record and say that I think it was egregious, and I am fully in support of NDAs. I understand why you would need them, and the argument is clear.
Yeah.
The
Totally
delegate
signed
list.
it 2 years ago. It made perfect sense. This is an overreach. I think they're trying to solve a problem
Yes.
that they perceive, which I'm not convinced is really a problem. So
Sure. And I'm not blaming me being a delegate. I'm a delegate for state. I have no problem telling anybody that. So if you want to contact me, you're more than welcome to. But all of a sudden now I'm getting all these emails from like Speaker Mike Johnson and all this stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, how do they even know my number? So I'm just wondering, who knows? I'm not saying anything nefarious, but I thought it was a little wild that and I've heard the arguments. I'm not going to, people are saying, well, things happened in the past and people used them in ways and they had to beef it up in order to make sure. And look, I get it, but I wouldn't, if somebody called me and said, hey, I've got to sign this, what do you think about it? And I had no idea what they were doing, I would be like, nope, I'm not signing that. So.
Well, Roy, think about it this way. What if you had to sign an NDA to send to the Secretary of State before he would give you the voter roll for your county?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It really, really is. It's, yeah. Well,
so it's inappropriate.
Yeah. Well, I agree.
And overreach.
I agree. I think there's a lot of people out there that agree with that, at least for what I've heard. Absolutely. Lisa says,
I happen to mention that I'm working on my Master's of Legal Studies as well.
No, you didn't. Wow. You've got a lot of irons in the fire.
That's what I do for fun.
That's awesome. I mean, there you go. I mean, you're more than qualified. I mean, good Lord. All right. So let me get this back up here. Lisa Adams says, thank you for clearing up confusion. So that's what we're trying to do here, folks. We want to set the record straight. And Smattertooth says, I no longer trust my local state GOP. I donate directly to campaigns. So, I mean, look, the bottom line is a lot of people feel that way, okay? It's not a crime to feel that way. It doesn't mean that Smattertooth, who I know is integrity, is not saying, again, that there's something bad going on. But when you know nothing of what's going on. And now I'm talking to the treasurer of the state GOP, who is in the dark about a lot of things. I mean, that's a situation that needs to be rectified. You know?
Well, and we also don't have very good communication. You know, we
Obviously
need to be
not.
letting people know, hey, this is what we have planned, and
Right.
you know, we're going to be raising money for this, and we're going to be doing this, and you know, you can do that without giving away your strategy to Democrats. But I think if we beefed up the communication, I think that would go a long ways toward the trust and transparency as well.
Well, sure. I mean, I'm not going to sit. You know, a lot of people on the ground say that the executive committee, all these are just positions, just filled positions, and nobody does anything. I mean, that's what people say.
And
If that's
kind of what their job titles are. I'm the only one with an actual job.
Right, and
I'm having a hard time doing that.
Exactly. So.
And the only excuse I get is we've always done it this way.
Right. Yeah. That's just not. That's not good
I'm like,
enough.
but when you know better, you do better.
It's not good enough when you have your own party going down. You know, when you have your own party going down to the Capitol and putting cameras up in their own Republicans' faces, wanting to know why they voted on legislation. I mean, I've never in my life been A, more scared to do something, but B, watch the reaction of these people, because they were just couldn't believe that we were there asking them questions. And I'm like, we cannot operate this way. We have to be more transparent. And in my opinion, I speak for myself, was the worst legislative session I've ever seen go through anywhere. Totally bypassed the people on this one. And we were lucky to get what we got stopped. And it's just like, we cannot operate this way. We're going to look into everything. How can we praise Doge, praise paper ballots, and all these things that are we finally fought for our president to have, and then we turn a blind eye to our own organizations? I mean, I can't make it make sense to me.
I agree.
All right. Oh, wow. Hank Sullivan is with us tonight.
Oh dear.
Absolutely. Well, he's got one of the best Substacks I've ever seen. I mean, I pay attention to all of his work.
Yeah.
Hank Sullivan has a good question. He says, "What kinds of questions are not being answered?" Can you elaborate on that?
Oh, what kinds of questions are not being answered? That's a great question. I mean, I know that I have. I'm trying to think of a good example, and to be perfectly honest, there's been so little communication since the election that nothing. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but that's an excellent question. You know what? Tell Hank I'll get back to him on that
Sure.
one. I'll have to sit down and think about it, because I don't want to, again, accuse anybody of withholding information or anything like that. I have some things outstanding, but that doesn't mean that they haven't been answered. It just means I haven't gotten the answer yet.
You've answered. There's no
And so
communication.
I don't want to suggest that, I'm getting stonewalled. I just don't know the answer yet.
Sure. I got you there. Absolutely. Thank you, Hank. Richard says, "We are in a total mess with the Georgia Mafia in control. It certainly feels like it under the Gold Dome." So, and Smatter to You says, "Thank you for trying to be part of the solution." So, absolutely. I mean,
if you're not part of the solution, you're obviously part of the problem.
Right. And, Smatter to You says, "This is exactly why I don't trust my local GOP." Well, I can tell you my experience with my local GOP is we have a treasurer, and when we go to county committee meetings, the treasurer reads out all the information. She comes with receipts, tells us where we're at, what we're doing, and then anybody can look at those and then question it, call to question, or anything like that. So I'm very proud of my county GOP because it's an open book.
That's how it's done.
Right. So
that's how it's done.
All right. Denise Burns, she says, "Have I looked at the monthly FEC reports? Details on spending are available there." So I have not personally looked at any FEC reports. I'm just trying to figure this out. So she says details on spending are available there. Is that true?
Details on, okay, the FEC reports only include our federal money,
Okay.
which, as you know, federal campaigns can't take money from corporations or foreign nationals. So we have to keep our state money and our federal money separate. FEC reports only show federal money.
Okay.
So it's not all the money the GOP has. And as I explained before, yes, you have FEC reports. They list every single solitary check. Okay. It might say mailer. It might say AV, for an event. Whatever it might say legal expenses.
Okay.
And if that's all you care to know, then you're in good shape.
Gotcha.
It has been my experience that most people don't feel like those are sufficient category titles. It doesn't tell them anything. A mailer for what? A mailer for whom? Who
Right.
did it go to? How many of them were done? How many were mailed? What was the impetus behind it? There are so many questions that an FEC report simply can't answer by its very nature.
Right. I understand that.
But if that's all you're interested in knowing,
Right.
knock yourself out. Go read the FEC reports.
Sure.
I read them. I read them every month.
I wouldn't mind seeing them. We've gotten involved in our county commission reports and going in depth with them and everything like that. So, and I don't want anybody to think I know what I'm talking about here. I'm just trying to understand this. But that's a great question, and I would definitely like to check out these FEC reports. So,
Well, I can send you the link for the Georgia Republican Party's.
absolutely.
It's very easy. As a matter of fact, I have them bookmarked on my Google,
Yeah.
on my Chrome browser, so I can just go look at them whenever I get ready.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd love to get a link.
You have to be a real nerd to appreciate them.
I'm telling you, I'm starting to. I like to dig into stuff like this, but I'm not. I do lose attention span, but it'd be cool just to check them out and see them for myself. Absolutely correct. So.
Well, they're public. They're out there.
Okay. Lisa Adams says, so if she doesn't have access to see where the money is spent, checks, balances, who is responsible? Do they hold her accountable for anything? Will she get in some sort of trouble? So is there any kind of risk involved with you maybe not knowing certain things? I think is what the question is.
Yeah. So Karen assures me that she balances the checkbook every month.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to assume that that's exactly what she's doing. And that's what we're tying our compliance filing reports back to. A lot of people have reached out to me and said, we're so worried you might go to jail. Okay. I'm not going to jail, Roy. Okay. Would I be held responsible? Technically, I am responsible if there is anything wrong, if there is a contribution that is made that was inappropriate.
Okay.
Okay. Now, which is one of the reasons I want to see the bank statement. I want to see the copies of the checks from folks who are giving us money. Not to tell everybody. I mean, the FEC report, it's already there. But at least so I can verify that it's, not really some terrorist organization somewhere. I mean, we're not doing that. But what if we did? I wouldn't know it.
I got you.
So, and I totally just lost my train of thought.
So basically, I mean, like you said, okay.
So I actually went and looked just to be on the safe side because, I'm a CPA. If I am found guilty of a felony, I lose my CPA license. And that's never going to happen. Okay?
Okay.
In order for me to have any kind of issue with the FEC or any of these the Georgia Finance Commission, I would have to willfully and knowingly prepare a report that had bad information on it. And clearly, I don't know.
Right. Okay.
Right?
I see what you're saying.
So I'm not at all worried about me.
Right.
What I'm worried about is that at some point the FEC is going to find something that we should have known even if it was just an honest mistake,
Mm-hmm.
that we can't get corrected, and that's my fear. I'm looking out for the party. I'm not worried about me. I'll be
Gotcha.
fine.
Okay.
I'm looking out for the party.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. And somebody asked, Richard Schroeder asked, who is the heck is Mike Crane? I've heard the name, but I don't know who he is. So
He's our first vice chair.
first vice chair. Okay. I don't know who he is. Mike.
I can't remember where he's from. Honestly, I think he's in construction.
Okay.
That's all I know.
Gotcha. All right. Michael Anthony from Pittsburgh gives us thumbs up. Thank you. Sam Carline, good to see you tonight. He says transparency, communication, inclusion, as opposed to exclusion. Unity, please. Well-read statement. Yes.
Can't argue with any of that.
Beth Mercure says, but they made time to remove Pritchard. Actions and fruit speak volumes. Okay. Got you, Beth. Thank you for being with us tonight. And Richard Schroeder says, we have been bamboozled. Bring in Toge. Jan Sheffield. Oh, okay. Let's see. I'm looking for some questions here. Let's see. Okay, Hank Sullivan again says, how does Laurie feel about McCoon running a candidate against her? Why would he do that? Okay. So is that how you feel that McCoon?
Okay.
Okay.
So let me just say this.
Okay.
I don't ever jump to conclusions.
Right.
And I don't say things that I don't know for a fact. I don't know that Josh went out and found somebody to run against me. Maybe it happened. I don't know. I can tell you certain conversations that I had and what days I had them.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I had an opponent. Whether or not they're related, I don't know. I don't, and I don't want to say this in a public forum, but I was a huge fan of Josh when he was first elected. He was very, very helpful to me, teaching me about certain legal things that mattered with the party and things we could do and things we couldn't do. And I don't know when the communication just failed, and it just disappeared. And I think he thinks that I'm beating up on him, and that's not the case.
Right.
And so maybe my opponent was recruited. I don't know. I don't know where he came from. I hear he's from Fulton County. I have still not met him.
What is his name?
Don't ask me to pronounce his last name, but it's Jeff Della something. I can't do it.
Okay, I've seen his name before. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't exactly sure who the opponent was.
Yeah, and I'm sure that he ran a very successful business, and I'm sure he was great at it, and which would have made him a perfect client for me. I mean, I would have been his CPA.
Gotcha.
Right? That's because that's what I do. I do the financial side of businesses, all
Right.
the time. I've never heard him say that he actually has prepared a financial statement. So I'm not sure that he can do what I do.
Right. But obviously, like you said, you're not saying you don't have a clue. Like I get from the question. So, but
yeah,
it is what it is.
I can't say that. I don't
Sure.
know.
I got you.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let me see. We did discuss Trish Ann Hay. We did discuss the NDA agreement, and you said you did not sign it, correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, Noreen asked the same question. Linda Menk says, good to have you, Linda. Why is the Georgia GOP playing dodge and weave? If Laurie's suggestions were implemented, the members would calm down. Okay, so that's an honest point. So absolutely. I mean, obviously, I'm not sitting here making this up or saying that I mean, you can go talk to anybody out there. Maybe it's because we don't understand, and maybe it's because we're doing this because we're trying to understand. I have not gotten any inclination from you, just by even these questions, that there's something nefarious going on. I'm not leaving this conversation thinking that there's something going on. There's just simply no communication here, right? That's what I'm getting from it, and people
There's a
aren't
better way.
sure.
There's a better way. I'm trying to bring that to the table. That's what I would like to do.
Right.
And I'd like to have a frank discussion. If I can't do it, I'd like
Well,
to.
and I think people are going to. I don't know. I can only speak for myself. I don't feel like you're attacking anybody, and I don't feel like I'm attacking anybody. I feel like we're just having an honest discussion, and discussions that obviously haven't been had for a while. That's all. So, I mean, you can make whatever you want of this, folks, but what you're doing is you're learning about a candidate that's running for treasurer it's been in there and trying to explain it to us is how I feel. So, let's see. Linda says the 2025 NDA is a tool that can be used to remove people from leadership who aren't willing to play the establishment game. I mean, that's a perception. An NDA is an NDA. Do I think like this is a little harsh? I absolutely do. But again, it's not out of context for an NDA. But again, perception is the key here. Let's see. Let me see if I can find Sharon Harlan. Thank you for being here. She's with me every week. Richard Schroeder said, "Did Raffensperger get the Canadian Election Authorities Act taken off of our tabulator tapes?" I don't think we know the answer to that one, Richard. Let's see. Okay, Trish Anhay says, "Do you know where all the money raised from the Georgia State conventions goes? I know some goes to pay for the convention. Do you know where the rest of the money goes to? Should we ask Karen that question?" So is that a valid question?
That is a valid question, and that's something that would be on one of my financial statements after the convention. I mean, I like to do a summary of all the events that we do.
Right.
I remember the 2023 convention in Columbus. We broke even, so all the registration and the fees for the dinners and the breakfasts and everything broke even with the cost of the convention. Okay. And then the only money we made was from the sponsorships.
Gotcha.
Okay. That was the profit. And as far as where it goes, money is fungible. So it was in the account and we used it to pay bills.
All right.
I can't say it went to a specific thing.
That's a reasonable explanation, or at least you have some sort of feedback.
And let's not forget, and I'm not telling you anything confidential.
Right.
We had a ton of legal bills.
That's true.
For a while there, and we were having to fund those, and that wasn't fun.
Sure, absolutely, and I think people forget about all of the things we've went through with the RICO cases and our own people being charged. I mean, there's, like I said, I don't feel that there's anything wrong here other than the fact that we're not the perception's not right. We're not doing things right. We've got to have more transparency between the people and in the party. But yeah, we've had a lot of legal bills.
Yeah, so it's been obnoxious.
Okay. Hank Sullivan asked, "Did Laurie vote to remove Pritchard?"
Okay, since it's already public anyway, they've already put it out there. The answer is no.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Which, I don't know if that has anything to do with some of the...
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I see.
I don't know if that has anything to do with the friction, but I did vote no.
Okay, I got you. I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let's see. Denise Burns says, "Can Laurie provide some detail related to the transition in Gwinnett County between the old county exec committee and the new group that was just elected? There is a question about a credit card."
Dying to know how Denise would know anything about that. Yeah, I'll tell you. When I became treasurer in 2021, I went to my very first, it was a county committee meeting. I'm having to think back now, Roy. And I told the county committee that I thought we needed to get a credit card.
Okay.
That it would, we'd get one with a very small limit, because, there are just some things you can't pay for, like the GoDaddy and the MailChimp. And, you have to put a credit card on file with these people. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't fair of any one of us to have to put up a personal credit card. So I went out and got the credit card. I go to the next county committee meeting and I get ripped up one side and down the other for getting a credit card that I told them I was going to go get.
Okay.
I was like, I don't know what just happened here. Y'all told me I could do this. Matter of fact, I had somebody walk up and say, that's a great idea. Just make sure it's not a debit card. Now, keep in mind, Roy, I had just walked in on a broke party.
Gotcha.
That had no money, and part of the reason was from debit cards being misused. So here I have this credit card. I'm going to use it to put our expenses on. And they said, no, absolutely not. Okay. Cut that sucker up. Got a credit card in my name. Put all the credit cards, put all the MailChimp and the GoDaddy and the Numenar and everything else was on my credit card.
Right.
And now that I'm no longer on the board, and I told the treasurer this, long before the election, I told him me and my credit card are leaving.
Right.
When I'm not on the board, neither is my credit card. Put your own credit card out there. So I don't know what Denise thinks she knows, but the fact of the matter is I am still waiting for them to get expenses off my personal credit card so I can get rid of it.
Okay.
That's where we are on that.
Gotcha. All right. Let's see here. Let me see if I make sure I didn't miss anything. Hang on. A lot of people are saying great. Let's see. I think that's all the questions that we got for tonight, because we're going a little bit over an hour, folks. But I do appreciate all of the comments, especially all the questions. As always, we're an open forum. We're going to answer everything, and I appreciate you being on here tonight. And I want to reiterate that nothing that you've told me makes me obviously I've got questions about everything, but I don't think that I don't get a vibe that you're accusing anybody or doing anything. I just get a vibe that we need changes. We need more transparency. We need people to really want to trust the GOP and sort of a checks and balances situation. That's all. So obviously
that's all I'm trying to do.
Right.
If you know of a better mousetrap, why wouldn't you use it?
Right.
We have the ability to do better, so let's do better.
Absolutely. And I'm going to give you the last word, because we're nearing the end, and I always give my guests the last word. So what do you want the people to know?
I just want them to say, I just want to tell everybody, I am very loyal to the Georgia Republican Party. And I want to do the best job I can, not only for the party itself, but also for the members and the county treasurers and county chairmen. And I want to be a resource. And I am just hoping that you will look at me and see that you can always get a straight answer out of me. I'm not going to dance around anything. And so hopefully you'll think that matters. And come June, you'll cast your vote for me for treasurer.
Well, I certainly appreciate you giving me the time to be on the show, as we are all in a learning process trying to figure this thing out. So again, it means a lot that you came out, folks. I hope that you guys got some answers, some questions answered as we move through this state convention. And like I said, we're trying to get all of these candidates' voices out there to the people so we can better educate ourselves. Other than that, please like, share, subscribe, Small Town Underground. Share it with your friends, and we'll be dropping a special report this coming Friday from Joe McCoy. I'm super excited to be able to drop that and tell his story. And that's it. We are out of here, and you guys have a wonderful evening. Just hang on the line.
Legislature legalized unverifiable voting in 2000.
Like you said to Trump, but they're getting beauty.
They said, go out there and rob these houses and bring back the bounty, and then that'll pay your way.
Because Republicans who get endorsement from Georgia carry that they mean anything.
You can't sit on the sidelines any longer. You must get involved in the game. This is your sign.